Welcome back. Raising in the unemployment rates are still going on in this country and around the world. After electronic and automotive industry, this time the ceramics and pharmacy companies are also laying off their workers. And here's more.
Data from Ceramics Industry Association Indonesia, or ASAKI, show that about 20,000 workers, or 10% from the total labor, are being laid off. This is due to weak demands for ceramics and global economic slowdown. As a result, the industry has to cut off their productions and let go half of their employees. Most of the employees that are being let go are those under contracts and not permanent employees. The Indonesian Trade Union Confederation, or KSPI, noted that a number of multinational formation companies also took part in the massive layoffs. Novartis let go 100 people from a total of 300, Sandoz sent about 200 people home, while Sanofi laid off 100 people. Some other companies that are planning to lay off their employees are Merck, Glaxo, and Johnson & Johnson. Many ceramic producers are forced to cut production because stocks large enough for 2 months are still piling up. High production costs, especially the energy cost, and weak demand have hurt the performance of the industry.
And now to talk more with us about this issue, we have with us ILO Country Director for Indonesia, Francesco. Francesco, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I would like to start with the global economic slowdown. And how do you see it's affecting the labor market globally?
Yes, the ILO is coming out every year with this report, checking the employment rate worldwide. What I would like to say, this is, as you said, this is a global issue at the moment. It's not specific for Indonesia or for the Asian community. There is a global recession overall, as you know very well. Two, three elements that might be considered as driving this recession. I think one is the economy in China that has been slowing down the last year in 2015. Another element surely is related to the price of commodities that we have noticed also decreasing very much.
Yep.
And also the trade, the global trade investment has been also known a significant reduction. So these elements altogether have an impact on the economic growth and obviously on unemployment.
Well, based on the report, ILO report, it's also mentioned about the percentage of the jobless rate that, like the trend is actually increasing this year. So can you explain more about it?
Overall, we're talking about 197 million of people unemployed in the world today. 197 million.
My God, okay.
Might be a very huge figure, but the problem is that it's slightly increasing. We are not talking about a huge crisis now in terms of employment. We are talking about a slowing of the good results we had in the past.
All right.
For example, a little bit more of unemployment, a little bit more of vulnerable work, and there is also another element that, the growth of the middle class is slowing down. It's still growing. We're talking about 40%, but it's still is slowing its pace. And this has also a correlation very significant with the social unrest, because the more you have people not growing and not having a decent occupation, the more they are dedicated to other occupations. This is also very important, and it's a matter of concern. And the other element is that many more people gave up looking for a job. And this is something, again, very worrisome, because they think there is a lack of decent work occupation out there in the market is refraining them from being actively looking for a job. So they keep on working in the informal sector, and this is not good news.
Well, if that number actually global
yes,
number,
global.
But now we focus more to Indonesia.
Yeah.
Especially when we know exactly, like a couple companies already did their layoffs, massive layoffs, if I'm not mistaken. But can you tell us more about how is this going on in Indonesia for this year? Should we worry?
Again, the numbers are referring to 2015. Indonesia has been created 200,000 jobs in 2015. Our estimates, more or less, roughly thinks Indonesia would need 7.3 million jobs every year to absorb the growing workforce coming to the market. The problem is that the nice thing of Indonesia, that we are talking about the fourth population in the world with 140 million active workers out there. So this is not a country as any other. This is the fourth after China, India, and the US. So these numbers might look really very significant, but you know, the economy is, you know, the important is that to keep on growing with the economy and also diversify the economy, because of what we said before, with the commodity going down, it's an issue. But if you look at the unemployment per se, the problem is that it's still growing, not much, but from 5.9 to 6.2% unemployment rate in the country, which in absolute terms is quite good. I mean, if you look at the slowing down of the economy in the Western world, particularly in Europe, we're talking about 11, 12%, especially in Southern Europe. So relatively speaking, it's good. But the problem is that the huge young population coming to the market is creating, you know, a gap into the employment stage.
Okay, creating a gap, but now, since you mentioned about commodity prices is going lower now, so what are the sectors, the key sectors that we should keep an eye on now?
I think the social and personal sector are those related where people are unskilled or semi-skilled are really hit by this so-called crisis. They are those really clearly more vulnerable. There are other sectors like manufacturing is stagnant at the moment with not many investment coming up, which is also a problem because I was saying before, I know that the government's idea is to diversify the economy and moving into manufacturing, the human capital and the labor-intensive market more and more.
But so the classic issues still
arise. Still arise. But the good news is that construction, wholesale, and retail are still quite you know, promising for the future.
Yeah, it's interesting when you mention manufacturing in terms of, you know, like building infrastructures that's been going on and been the one focus area from the government. But in terms of policy packages that we already received from the government right now, are you happy with those?
We saw a lot of attention on social matters in this new policy package and economy. We would like to provide some recommendation to have a mixed, you know, approach to this, providing decent work opportunities, extending social protection to particularly to the most vulnerable one, make sure that social dialogue exists. The social partners, unions, employers, and the government should come together, especially on very, very important topics like fixing of wages for the future. I think the country would benefit in having a long-term policy in a wage fixation. It would give predictability, but also happiness and, you know, increase confidence in the market. We also think it's important to maintain competitiveness and invest, as I said before, on productivity and in diversifying the economy. I think this is quite important. We believe that a further investment in this matter, on social matters, on decent work, on social protection, and reducing informality would be really key for the economy to have a jump and to reduce unemployment in future.
But you mentioned about 3 areas there, which is the social protection
yes.
and then the minimum wages. Those are the key elements that already, you know, it's been years been discussing by the regions government in regions or the central government with the business players as well. But, you know, it seems like it's keep, you know, on and on every year. The issues are still the same. So what are the key strategies to, you know, to make it to make it balanced? To be, you know, as soon as we can get the productive way in terms of labor and, you know, the company itself.
My point of view, if you see that there are people discussing about this, it's a good sign. It means that dialogue is dynamic, it's there. In other countries where I've been before, this dialogue was completely dead, and somehow things were imposed. So it's good that the society is very dynamic this way. However, as I was saying before, to avoid or to minimize or to mitigate, you know, the disrupting effect of such a continuous discussion and dispute over these things, I think the country should look really on the long term. For example, on the wages issue, instead the ILO is ready to provide technical support, not really on the specific formula to be applied. That's really an economic matter. But what we would like to see if the policy on wages can be seen in from now to the 5-10 years time. So we can have rules and regulation that can be really taken into account the needs of the workers, of the enterprises, and also having the government as a regulator. So it's important the government is a regulator and not just the main actor into that.
All right, one last question. In terms of looking at the population here in Indonesia and then the unskilled workers issue in this country, what should we do?
skill mismatch is problem number one, probably. I should have mentioned this before. We hear this a lot from the employers and also complaining from the workers. As I said, this makes them much more vulnerable. I think the Asian community could be the solution because the massive migration of workers now happening in the region, I think this issue should be really related in the region. Just to find vocational and training center and education at the best possible level so people don't have to migrate and have no skills in the country where they are going, and this will really benefit the entire growth and the entire happiness of the society.
Francesco, thank you so much for being
you.
here in
Thank you very much.
Remarkable. Thank
you
you
very much.
And Twitter is in trouble as they added no new users in the fourth quarter. And that's next.